Now, in a special programme to mark Concorde's final flight today, BBC World meets the people who designed, built and flew her and looks back at over 30 years of supersonic passenger flight.
This is the fastest passenger jet ever put in regular service. It flies a mile every 2.5 seconds. It goes so high, it's flying above the stratosphere in the troposphere. It's the nearest thing ordinary people can get to being in a space shuttle. But when 30 years ago Concorde was designed, the dream was it would be more than a fast plane. This was going to revolutionise the whole world of passenger transport. Now Concorde is being retired. The question is this the end of the dream?
Rotate. All's going well. She's airborne. 002 flies well ahead of the predicted time.
More than 30 years on from that test flight here at Filton in the west of England, Concorde is still a symbol of exclusivity and free enterprise. It's ironic, therefore, that the only way it got off the ground was to rely on some very old-fashioned state support. In fact, it was too big a project even for the British government. The only way the plane got off the ground was for the British and French to work together. They signed an agreement, a Concordat, to jointly build a supersonic plane.
This was the time of great prestige projects, and the big prestige, the ultimate prestige project at that time was the Americans and the Russians fighting over who was going to be first in space, with putting a dog up there, putting a man up there, and then eventually getting a man on the moon. So there was this great fight going on, and Europe was sitting there feeling rather out of it. And Concorde happened to be something which Europe succeeded in doing, and America tried to do and failed. And what's more, it has had an amazing legacy. If it were not for the fact that Concorde had been built, and that literally in the other sense, Concorde, the British and French learned how to get on with each other technologically, we would not have Airbus today.
It's not the most glamorous of locations. It's an old brick building at the end of a runway. But this is where British Airways keep their historic documents and the Concorde memorabilia. And it's run by some retired BA staff who are keen to keep their hand in. You've got a selection of menus here from Concorde, haven't you? What sort of stuff did they serve?
Well, this is one of them from the early flights, and they were serving things like Parma ham and Maine lobster.
And what I like is this the in-flight shopping magazine, which is distinctly posher than the stuff I'm used to. Huge amounts of gold and things here. People actually buy this?
They do indeed.
What we've got here is sort of effectively, I think, well, some logbooks. Now, this is the average load factors. It goes back to September 77. Coming back is a lot fuller than going out. Actually, going out is sometimes only 30% full. It goes up to 80% full coming back. Got Air France, which unfortunately looks rather busier. Air France looks a bit busier than the British Airways Concorde. And also, which I think is really interesting, is just how reliable the aircraft has been. Down to about 90%, overall about 93% reliable during 1978. What have we got here? Useful hints on the service of drinks. Check that glasses are clear and not chipped.
Good scheme.
Good. Handle glasses by the stems. Place the glass on a drip mat. Always garnish squashes with a slice of orange. Remember, a drink should please the eye as well as the palate. Isn't that fantastic?
It is.
It's more than a manual on Concorde, it's a way of life.
It's a way of life, absolutely right.
Concorde creates a priceless halo effect for British Airways. Its most frequent flyers have been rich Americans who've used Concorde to fly the Atlantic and then stayed with British Airways in first class to fly on to other places. Without Concorde, British Airways must hope they'll retain those passengers using their first class seats. They certainly don't want the likes of Virgin buying Concorde and nicking their most lucrative passengers.
The computer that controls the position of the ramps was a breakthrough in aviation, the first digital computer. It also was the one thing that the British got right in the development of the airplane that the Americans and the Russians couldn't get right. And that's what makes Concorde so efficient and enables us to fly at Mach 2 without the use of reheats.
I've been in cockpits before, and they've been rather disappointing in that they look rather like video games. But this is like something out of a documentary my old man's got about Lancaster bombers. I mean, it really does feel the part.
I think it's a great, I mean, one of the reasons there's so much in here is there are so many more systems. The airplane's rather like 4 airplanes. We fly twice as high, twice as fast, so we've got 4 times as many systems. The area we've got is a little less because we're at the front of a very streamlined body. And thirdly, it was designed, of course, in the late 60s, early 70s. And it's a great tribute to the designers. They got it right first time.
Nobody's disputing that it was a great engineering achievement, but could they have done anything better?
No, when you think that even today, Concorde is the only aircraft that's capable of flying across the Atlantic at twice the speed of sound. It can fly at Mach 2 for over 3 hours. It can get to the edge of space. When the sky gets darker, you can see the curvature of the Earth. It can do all of that in complete luxury for our customers. The only other people that are in that sort of area are wearing spacesuits. They're wearing lounge suits.
I know you're a pilot, and with respect, you're not a businessman, but you must have a view on the fact that so much money was spent to get Concorde flying again after the Air France disaster. And then why bin it a matter of months later, really?
I think it's 2 separate decisions. I'm absolutely convinced that the decision to put the airplane back in the air was the right one, for the right reasons. What we couldn't foresee as we were bringing the aircraft back into service during that period of time was what happened on September the 11th. That happened to be the first route proving flight and the program to bring the aircraft back. We talked to our customers again, and for the first 3 to 6 months of operation, you know, we were doing really well, making good returns, and our customers were flying with us. What happened then was a combination of other things: foot and mouth in the UK, SARS worldwide, general economic downturn. In the US in particular, people were traveling less. Generally, people had less money available to spend for travel budgets. They were downsizing their companies, looking for cuts here, there, and everywhere. And what we saw was a downturn in our premium market. At the time, the manufacturers came to us and said, over the next 2 years, we're going to need to spend an additional £40 million over budget on other engineering and maintenance aspects of Concorde, some of which are not even Concorde related. As Concorde flies supersonically, she's travelling very quickly, and what happens is the air rushes past, and the friction of the air and the compression of the air heat up the fuselage. And in fact, the fuselage, it heats up to 127 degrees Celsius, and that's hotter than boiling water at sea level. So the whole thing expands, and it grows between 6 and 10 inches in supersonic flight. Now, fortunately, the designers anticipated that, so throughout the airplane, they've put areas of expansion where the airplane literally gets bigger as it's hotter and cools again and gets smaller. The only visible one of those is on the flight deck, and it's by the side of the flight engineer's panel, between the engineer's panel and the bulkhead. On the ground, you can't get your fingernail in there. When you're supersonic, you can get your whole hand in there. That gap opens right up. There's a lovely apocryphal story about a pilot on an early test flight putting his cap in there in the supersonic flight. When they got on the ground, he couldn't get it out.
4 years ago, Concorde went through a multi-million-pound refit. And this is Britax, where they make the seats for Concorde. And this is how to make an airline seat in 30 seconds. You start with a piece of plastic, might have been used by Rolf Harris, and you put it into a vacuum forming machine by my friend Darren. There you are, Darren. Do your stuff. Chucks it into the machine, forms a vacuum, and it sucks out the shape of the side of the seat. This shows the heat. When it gets to 150, the machine should be ready to actually cause the vacuum. So we're getting up there. And that's the side of the seat. This is a foot fitting. It's where the seat actually gets attached to the aircraft, makes it nice and safe, gets pushed forward here. Here you've got the start of a structure taking place, and right round over here you've got the pair of seats and really the beginnings of the whole seat taking shape. And this is where they put the cushions and all the other bits and pieces onto that frame. Martin's been working on this seat. It's a British Airways business class seat which turns into a bed. Very nice. But now back to the drawing board.
We had a number of basic rules. One was the outside of Concorde was beautiful, but inside Concorde it was quite grey. Yeah. I mean, drab, it certainly wasn't drab, but it was austere. And we wanted to bring the outside in, so we wanted to lift the appearance. You'll see that it actually ended up being heavier than our original intention, but it's heavy with kind of soft language. You know, it's a very comfortable seat.
How much, you talk a lot about weight. How much was weight an issue? It's not just the look here, but saying, look, there are technical requirements.
Absolutely.
For this plane.
The ambition was to save 20% throughout the aircraft.
Wow.
And on the seat, that would have been bringing it down from sort of 38, roughly 38 kilos down to closer to 30. One of the things that we did was this whole element that forms the kind of basic body of the seat, we made in one piece. The key feature of this was a little mechanism that we produced to go inside here that was actually now patented by BA. A nice big comfortable blade of armrest, and if you hold the mechanism fixed, as it lifts, if you watch, it automatically twists through 90 degrees and therefore becomes very thin and tucks.
And that's the one they've actually used on the plane. And right next door to British Airways, they've got the beginnings of the Virgin upper class seat. I think it'll look a bit better when it's finished. In fact, they make seats for all of the world's major airlines. They've got 55% of the world market in first and business class. They make 5,000 of these seats every single year, and here at this factory in Wales, they employ 650 people. So tell me about the process of designing a chair. You get an airy-fairy designer, slaps down a design, and you're the actual guy that's got to make it and make it comfortable.
Oh, it's not quite like that. You've got to take what the designers are bringing to you to put that into an engineering solution in terms of weight, size, packaging.
So how much does a seat like this cost?
Oh, about $15,000.
Oh, which actually isn't too bad, but they get a lot more expensive than that, don't they?
Yeah, they can do. We can actually manufacture seats that are up to $85,000, $90,000.
Wow. That's first class. That's front.
Of course, that's first class.
Yeah, very nice too. You also make the toilets, don't
you?
you?
Absolutely. Our company actually makes every lavatory that goes onto an Airbus aircraft. We make 737 lavatories, and we also did the Concorde lavatories as well, the new ones. This is the Concorde toilet, where we incorporated some of the completely new features that you'd never see in a normal commercial aircraft lavatory. Very first class, very much like a first class hotel in London. If you go into the washrooms in London, this is very similar to the architecture you'll see.
It never actually got fitted though?
Never got fitted, but, so why don't you try it yourself and have a look?
I will do, thank you very much. Bit of privacy, but actually. By the way, missing a door. We're about to take off. If we can go, Captain.
Okay, before we go, Adam, I'll need you to set 250 knots in the speed acquire window for me.
Okay.
And 1,500 feet for our level off attitude, because we're at Shannon for a base training exercise.
250 set there, 1,500 on the outside. Ready to go?
Everyone's ready. Brakes going off. 3, 2, 1, now.
Okay, we're heading down runway Heathrow. What speed are we at?
We're at Shannon, runway 24. And keeping it straight with the rudder bars, airspeed's increasing, we're already at 70 miles an hour. 100 knots power set, that's 120 miles an hour, a little over 15 seconds.
We're drifting.
V1.
There's the end of the runway.
Rotate.
We're pulling up. Now, of course, that's a quick takeoff.
Climb, gear up. Okay.
So how long does it take to learn how to fly Concorde?
It takes 6 months.
And how does that compare with flying an Airbus?
Well, an Airbus or a Boeing
I'm having
take
real
about
trouble.
2 or 3 months.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Well, you have to concentrate, and because you're talking at the same time, it's more difficult to maintain
it.
attitude.
Oh, take control, take it,
I
take
have
it,
control.
take it.
We're going to get a walk pull up otherwise. There we go.
Get me back.
So bringing us back down. I'll get you back in the slot again, and we'll turn back onto base leg.
Where is the runway?
Coming back on the speed. The runway's out to your right. And then increase up and south. We were destabilised.
I didn't get that warning. I know I got you in a bad place.
You got me in a very bad place.
How different is it to flying other aircraft?
It's different from the modern aircraft, because the modern aircraft have now got TV screens here. They've got EVAs, electronic equipment.
And what
here.
difference does that make to actually flying it? It obviously looks different.
The new aircraft types are easier in as much that you've got flight management computers to allow you to see where you're going to end up on the rate of descent profile, or where the route is. You know exactly where you are on a navigation display. This one, you have to use your imagination more.
Look, I'm level. Right. I'm level.
Very nice. Just keep it that way.
4 seconds. I've been flying this okay. My muscles are so tense. It's actually...
That's right.
It's not easy. This is not like doing some little video control. It's really... You've got to pull this thing, haven't you?
Indeed you have.
It's for real men is what I'm saying.
You have to... 50.
Lower, lower,
40.
lower.
20. Keep pulling back. 15.
Okay, I'm pulling back. Damn you. Come on, come on.
Putting the reverses in. Lower the nose. Stick forward.
Brakes on.
Brakes on top of the pedals. Push hard on those brakes.
Pushing. Only the right one's going. Oh, I forgot. I got to steer. Come on.
Steer with your feet. Left with your feet, not with this. That won't steer. 100 knots.
I wasn't pressing the right pedal.
I have control. I'll bring it to a halt for you. You can relax a little bit now, Adam. I think we'll do some more training.
This is Gate Gourmet, one of the biggest caterers to the airline industry. They make 70,000 meals a day here using 24,000 rashers of bacon, 150,000 kilograms of scrambled eggs and 600 kilograms of mushrooms. They make all sorts of meals, cheap ones for charter flights and more expensive ones as well. But by far and away the most expensive meal they make is the meal they make for Concorde. And this is where it starts. Here we've got the raw material, loads of guinea fowl coming in all raw, going to be cooked by Mr. O'Full. Hiya.
Hello.
So what goes on here then?
They're ready to cook, seared off now.
Don't let me stop you because we've got Concorde passengers waiting. Is it noticeably different doing Concorde cooking to other flights?
It's a lot different. It's a lot of responsibility and quality we produce.
Is it a harder job cooking
it's
it?
It's not harder. It's like we take care of it, you know.
Look at these real lobsters, and they're alive. And unfortunately, they're not going to be very shortly. And I just can't do that, so I'll let somebody else do that. What are you going to do?
I'm going to boil them.
You're going to boil them?
Yeah, I'm going to cook them now.
Yes. You horrible man, you.
Well, this is job, part of job.
Oh, down they go. Oh. Right, this is the Concorde station. These are all the meals on Concorde. Canapes, I always want to say canaps. And anyway, that's how to do it. And here the ladies are laying it out. So what we've got here are the lobster cakes, haven't it? With a lobster claw there. And the guinea fowl, which we saw coming in raw with asparagus. Lovely. Look at that. Lovely chopped carrots and that's a bit of potato, isn't it? Bit of potato. All the way down here. And, oh, lovely king prawns, a bit of egg. Oh, and look, and those lemon slices I saw earlier. How very lovely. People talk about food tasting very different in the air and wine tasting very different in the air. Is that a lot of baloney?
No, we've actually done some work on this, particularly when I was involved with the wine buying side. And there's 13 conditions we identified that exist in a pressurised cabin that don't exist at ground level. And the potential cumulative effect is to reduce your palate perception by up to 40%. The interesting thing about Concorde, of course, is that the aircraft cabin pressure, even though it flies an awful lot higher than a normal commercial jet, the cabin is pressurised to a lower height. So, if anything, you could say that food tastes better on Concorde.
Okay. Well, so what sort of tricks do you have to keep the food fresh?
In terms of tricks of the trade, I mean, scrambled eggs is something you might think being reheated on board an aircraft would come back and be horrible, or go all hard, etc. But one of the tricks of the trade here is that you put some bechamel sauce through it, and this makes it really creamy and keeps the texture really good.
So can I pick one up?
Yeah.
How do you pick? They're not going to nip me, are they?
Yeah. No, because they were tied up. Yeah. Hold it up from here.
I can't do it.
Mary was an aerodynamicist with the Royal Aeronautical Society in the 50s and 60s. She was part of a team investigating the boundary between subsonic and supersonic flow. In other words, how to go through the sound barrier without the wings breaking up. Like thousands of others, she's played a small but significant part in Concorde's development, but never flown in it.
It's a very small loo. I meant to be taking a picture of that. That's for my loo-mad daughter.
It'll get extremely warm during the flight.
Right, okay.
Because it goes so fast.
You'll get it down.
It's true. Absolutely true.
So what can I say? Those of you who've not flown on the airplane before are about to join a very elite club. Very few people have travelled so high or so fast. It's a glorious day for it. You're going to love it.
So what did you make of that then?
Very emotional. Yeah.
I thought it was just...
it would be, but it...
I was more frightened than emotional. I'll be emotional when I get to the other end.
There you were.
How are your wings doing out there?
I think they're okay. I'll have a look. They're fine.
They're fine. The wings are doing all right. Thanks for holding my hand, by the way.
Ah, pleasure. Anytime.
I spoke to the engineers who work on here, and they privately said it's a nightmare. Not for any other reason than it's extremely difficult to actually get at everything. It's such an awkward plane to work on. Is it an awkward plane to be cabin crew on?
It's extremely hard work. I'm sure Joe will reiterate that.
Absolutely. It's because of the shape of it, it's difficult to manoeuvre and to just for the service.
And because of the speed of the aeroplane, it gets extremely hot, as you're well aware, extremely hot. So we're working in these conditions, but it is hard work, but the fact is we enjoy it.
What's it going to be like when you land now? Is that a big moment in your life then?
Absolutely.
It's going to be very sad, I think. Very sad.
Even now, do you think of the air molecules rushing past the wing at Mach 2? Have you considered that? No, because you're too busy spilling champagne everywhere, aren't you?
I've spoken to a lot of our Premier passengers and they were all willing to put up the finances to keep her going, and I think that we could have kept her going. The public support, I think everybody in the country would have given a fiver, man, woman and child, to keep it going. It's one of the few things that's British and that we're proud of, and I think everybody feels the same. I'm going to start crying at the end of this.
What do you make of the experience of flying on here?
It's incredibly smooth. I mean, although it's noisy, it's noisier than I expected. It's incredibly smooth, and that's what has really impressed me. Plus the takeoff, which was terrific. Oh, I enjoyed that. That was great. You know, I feel I ought to be making one of those sort of Oscar speeches.
Yes.
I am speaking on behalf of all the little cogs that contributed to and all the rest of it. But I do feel that. You know, I've been extremely honoured that I'm
been able to come on, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, I suppose it's the equivalent to sort of being part of a Formula One racing team in every respect. You know, right, all the different trades that go to make it work, and then just being able to be at the sharp end and having the wonderful opportunity to actually fly the airplane.
So knowing what you know, 25, 30 years' time, is supersonic air travel going to be sort of with us again in some form or other?
I don't know. Aviation's always moved forward in great bounds, and this is the first time that it's just stopped.
So how do you feel? How do you feel now?
Emotional.
Emotional. Well, at least we got to see it, didn't we?
We did.
If only you were sat next to Robert De Niro instead of me, that would have made it better. I just wonder, 10 or 15 years' time, somebody will decide, well, supersonic air travel, let's get back to it. How will it have to look when that happens?
I just can't envisage the human race taking a backward step forever, and I can't envisage my daughter, who's 9, talking to her children in the future and saying, do you remember when Grandad used to cross the Atlantic in 3 hours and 20 minutes and now it always takes 8.5 hours? I'm convinced that there will be a next generation of supersonic flight at some stage.